Tyranny. It's as American as beer and baseball. This is the America Beer, Baseball, Tyranny podcast with your hosts, Joshua Sopko and Aaron Bloomer. How you doing, Josh?
I'm well. I'm trying to get my phone on silent. There, that's better now.
Good. Get it together.
I had the old intro to try and do what I was doing, and I failed. Didn't get it done.
It's been a busy couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, we've had our own. There was about 1 billion topics we could have talked about today. We've had our own, my own COVID internal scare, which was BS.
So tell me about the testing. So,
my wife took my daughter to my daughter had a fever. So, fever. Oh my God. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, took her to the emergency room because no clinic would take her. My wife at the time didn't know about the drive-through testing.
Oh,
so when she got to the emergency room, they gave her a bunch of attitude about why are you here type of thing. They took a Q-tip from what I wasn't there again, but they did the swab version where they shove the Q-tip into your brain through your nose.
Tickle the back of your head.
Yep. It took about 2 hours to get back. Got a call saying, yeah, she's negative.
Oh, well, that's positive.
Yeah.
Plus, no problem.
So, it was whatever. It was inevitable of somebody's going to get sick that we know.
Sickness happens.
Sickness happens.
I'm glad you're good.
She's good. Your daughter's got a broken body.
She broke her collarbone. She's 2.5.
That's rough.
That's rough. We're going to explore that one. But
yeah, one of the interesting pieces that you and I have talked about previously in depth, I've had many conversations with many other people about. I like this topic because I think it is a guttural reaction. But basically, cops are killing black people, Josh.
Cops are killing lots of people.
But wait, I'm not getting ahead of myself.
You are. I was surprised that
I'm
you
actually really thirsty, and I just saw these beautiful bottles on the table here.
So I got us today Zipline Brewing Co. This is the Copper Alt.
Brave the Brew out of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even get that
not
far.
too far
I
away.
really enjoy their label.
Yeah,
it's nice and clean. But it's a 5.5%, 5.2 by volume. A hybrid style between an ale and a lager. This bronze-hued brew goes down easy with subtle nuances of chocolate and hazelnut. And they had different flavors.
So it's a Nutella beer.
Yes. So, we're going to give this one a go. It's a brave new brew. I think you said that already. Anyway. So, why
are cops killing black people, Josh?
They're killing everybody, man.
Cops are killing everybody.
They're killing a lot of people. But obviously this is relevant to the current times of now with George Floyd up in Minneapolis, who has recently been killed.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to sum this quick story up quickly, is that he wrote a bad check.
He was
allegedly
accused of writing a bad check.
Things happened. He got pulled out of his vehicle. A cop kneeled on his neck. Supposedly, allegedly, he was saying he could not breathe for upwards of 10 minutes.
It was in the video.
And he died. Yeah.
On the street.
In the middle of Minneapolis.
While 4 other officers protected the officer with the knee to the neck to make sure that the crowd that was gathering didn't interrupt official police business.
Honestly, I'll be honest, I haven't watched the video. I saw it come up, and I was like, I've seen this story.
It's always creepy and weird when you watch a living person stop breathing on a video.
Kind of surprised that hasn't been scrubbed from the internet yet, but
on Facebook, it's got the cover thing, the cover filter, so you have to click into it to actually watch it. But
then also today, I sent you a couple memes because, like, Josh, what the hell does this stuff mean? Like, I legitimately had no idea what it meant. So one of them was a lady on her phone with her dog, and it says, basically, this person makes this person happen, which is the gentleman who died by the police officer. So I looked that up, and apparently this lady had her dog off leash. A black gentleman asked her to put her dog on the leash, and then she called 911. Saying that this black gentleman was threatening her and recording her. And
there's a black guy talking to me.
Yep. And so what was it? Essentially racism equals cop killing. Okay. I guess. And then also, which do you prefer? The Colin Kaepernick kneeing on the sideline or this cop kneeing on this person's neck?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So that brought up the conversation of you and I, where I don't know where you want to go with this. So I'm just gonna. Don't believe that police officers are inherently racist.
Yeah, I don't. I guess I don't know.
Right.
I mean,
there's impossible for us to say. I mean, are there racist police officers? Probably yes. Are the vast majority of them blatantly, openly racist? I'm gonna go with no.
Right.
I personally do believe that police officers are trained to be racist.
Okay, so this is why I was like, let's talk about this, because it was that statement that you made that I thought was really interesting, that police are trained to be racist. So expand on that.
So through training, when a police officer goes to the academy through their continuing training and things like that, they are trained to control the situation. We've heard story after story after story of police officers incentivized to write tickets, police officers incentivized to do whatever. Malcolm Gladwell and the Freakonomics guys separately, but have amazing research about this, where I believe it was the Talking to Strangers, Malcolm Gladwell, of that police officers, they patrol predominantly black neighborhoods.
Sure.
Where they actually need to patrol like a block. Like all the crime is within a block. But to be out there, to be seen, they have to be in these black neighborhoods, and they have to show that they're visible. But also with that too is that police officers are trained to be the authority.
Yes. Yep.
So they're trained, they're told by their superiors to patrol these specific crime-ridden areas, and then they're also trained to be the authority. So what they do is, these are people who are trained to assert their dominance, whatever in whatever situation they are in, no matter whether if it's a traffic stop, a basic blinker, didn't use a blinker, which killed Sandra Bland, or if it's a people barbecuing on the street, or I mean, whatever it is, whatever situation a police officer gets him or herself into, they are trained to control and own the situation. And so inherently, in my opinion, they are going to put themselves in situations where they are going to need to use force to assert their dominance. And especially when you have a bulletproof vest on, you're carrying a gun, you're carrying a taser, you're carrying a baton, you're carrying handcuffs. It's easier to stand up taller and puff your chest out when you know you are out, when you walk up to a situation, you have more quote unquote firepower.
Yeah, you have the backing to be a bully.
Exactly. And I'm not going to agree to this, but there are other economists, and I believe it was Malcolm Gladwell, saying that the people who flock to being police officers are nerds, basically, who are losers, who are that don't get respect in their day-to-day lives, so they feel like they have to go they don't earn respect, they go and just get respect by becoming a police officer, whatever. I don't know that I go that far. I don't know that it's the case for every police officer, but some probably. But they're trained to, and this is in past interviews that I've had with police officers. I've on record. I have it on the Pertinent Information podcast where they're trained to own and basically control every situation.
Yes. Yep. And it's interesting that you said all this because I sent you this article just earlier tonight, and you haven't read it yet. But everything you just said, this is from a police officer of 18 years, had said everything about that.
I know things, Josh.
Just for us two white guys not being cops.
Right.
But it's titled, "I was a cop for 18 years. I witnessed and participated in abuses of power." And he goes on to talk about the lifestyle as a police officer and how that carried over into his personal life, how it ruined relationships and ended up doing a lot of really negative things in his life. But one thing that this is on Medium, and we'll share this in our show notes at beerbaseballtyranny.com. The most highlighted sentence of this Medium article states, quote, "The Academy did not teach us the fundamental difference between power and authority or how to judiciously apply it either." And that just summed up everything that you just talked about. And this is from a police officer who was, he worked his way into the special forces of, special forces unit or whatever. Sure. And he has a quote, "I began to feel less like a cop and more like a member of an occupying party or an occupying army."
Yeah.
Just, it's crazy to listen to you talk about that. And it's like, I just read that from a guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I've read it, and like I said, I interviewed a police officer. One of my good friends was a former police officer, and this is what he told me. This is how they were trained. Every situation you're in, and again, so am I saying that's wrong? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that's how they're trained. Right. I also try to put myself in the shoes of a police officer where as this comes out of my mouth, they're trained in every situation to expect the worst.
Right.
Also, so I get it, but also too, if you go into every situation expecting the absolute worst, which is you will be shot dead.
Yeah.
That's the worst situation, right? You die as a police officer. So you expect every traffic stop, every encounter with any person that you expect the worst, or you prepare for the worst as well. You're going to die. Well, a simple traffic stop then becomes something that it probably shouldn't, just because of how you, as the police officer, are carrying yourself.
You're a little heightened.
Yes, but I would be that way too, and that's my I think maybe my point is I'm not blaming necessarily the individual officer. I'm blaming the system.
Right. Okay.
The training. I'm not blaming Officer 274 because that's how he's trained. Like, that's how he was programmed in a way. It'd be really cool if he could think for himself and figure out, what, this is probably not a great idea to put my full body weight on this person's neck
for 8 minutes.
Yeah. But I mean, put yourself in that situation. There are people around. There are people videoing. There's other. I mean, I'm sure the scene was just chaotic at best, And so I'm not justifying anything, but I'm saying it's not an easy job. But again, they put themselves in this situation so that they need to better carry themselves. And I also don't believe that it's just black people dying either.
So on that note, kind of going back to the original topic.
Sure.
Where you said that
we're going to go off on so many tangents on this conversation. But
police are trained to be racist. I agree with everything you said, that they're taught to control the situation and that they are the authoritative, assertive power in every situation. They always have the upper hand. They get to be the legal bully whenever they feel necessary to be that. How does that translate specifically to race type of interactions?
I'm gonna try to explain what's in my brain.
Bring it out.
If I walk up to your dog and kick your dog and then walk away, that dog's going to remember that. If I walk up to him 10 days in a row, walk up to him every single day and kick that dog, he's going to remember me. So on the 11th day, he's going to avoid me, right? So he's looking at me and saying, this guy's going to kick me. I'm not going to be around this guy. Now, I'm going to try to loosely put that back to, we as a society have focused on who are committing the crimes. Now, again, this is a larger conversation because we can go back to, well, the guy selling marijuana on the corner. Should that be a crime?
Right.
Okay, right. And we've put more emphasis on, for whatever reason, but this is just facts, that we've put more emphasis on taking down the corner drug dealer that, or the guy who's dealing marijuana in the hood versus the guy in the mansion smoking or snorting coke, for whatever reason, right? So like we look at those people and like these guys from the news, from the police officers, from everywhere, this is what a criminal looks like. And society tells us that criminals are baggy clothes, chains, earrings, and they're black people. Look at our jails, look at or who is in our jails, things like that. And so we are, as a society, we say black people are the people who commit crimes. So if you're a security guard in a retail store and I walk in a suit and tie and I'm a white guy, you're not going to follow me with your cameras.
Right.
If two black guys walk in behind me with baggy clothes and blah, 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 you're going to follow them with your cameras. Now, that's because the last guy who stole from you that you caught or saw was probably a guy in baggy or fit that description. However, for whatever reason, just as many people in suits steal as black people from retail, from wherever, from whatever. Like that doesn't matter. But for whatever in our brains as people, we believe that black people commit all the crimes. And so we've told our police officers to focus on predominantly black areas. And we've also incentivized them to arrest people. So if you tell them you can arrest people from here, but not here, everybody who's here is white and everyone who's here is black, that's saying you can only arrest black people.
So it's kind of like social conditioning.
Yeah, for sure. Social conditioning also with decades of police forces having the wrong incentives.
Right.
That was a long, did that make sense?
Yeah, no, it did totally. And I think it got to the point pretty quickly that you drew that it's a social issue. I was curious.
Josh just said I shouldn't have talked for 20 minutes. I should have just said it was a social issue.
Let's see. There was something else that you parroted from, or that this article kind of parroted from you. Let me see if I can kind of find this guy in this Medium article. It's kind of like an op-ed, I guess you could call it. But he said I realize that policing and police departments are institutions that don't care about their officers. They care about justifying their own something. It had something to do about how they are incentivized or they're punished for not conforming. That's what it was.
Police officers
sure. For not conforming, because he got kicked off that special enforcement team that he was on, that set team, because he was having issues with the unconstitutional authoritative.
Was this the guy that went viral by who wrote that, who had that who like videoed himself in his patrol car, who went viral?
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I don't think so.
It's not the same guy.
His name's Larry Smith. This was written in 2018.
Then probably not, because I believe. Well, I guess I'm not sure. I never actually watched that video either.
And he quit in 2017. So I'm guessing it's a different guy.
Yeah, probably not the same guy.
Similar though type of messaging.
Exactly. But let's also go back to the point of police officers don't prevent crime.
No, they do not.
And if you are out there and believe that police officers prevent crime, you are sadly mistaken.
Yes.
Do police officers prevent one speeder a day? Maybe. Do they prevent somebody from breaking into my house in the middle of the night? 100,000% no.
No.
So when you look at white person's house gets broken into, let's just say a theoretical situation, police officers are predominantly white. The lawyers are predominantly white. The judge and all that's the whole judicial system's predominantly white. They are incentivized, the detectives who are also predominantly white, by solving crimes that have already been committed. While it's pretty easy to loosely put a crime on somebody who can't defend themselves.
Sure.
And who are those people? Well,
poor minorities.
Poor people who are typically poorer people. They're typically minorities. And so, like, I'm not saying, and we've talked about doing an episode about white privilege.
Yeah, and I think we will, because I
think we will, and
because
I think
it's come up now specifically because of this this murder that happened in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, keep going.
Because we're kind of towing that line of, like, if a white guy broke into a white guy's house, I don't know, but they're incentivized to find someone. They're not really incentivized to find the right person.
Right.
Right. And again, I don't know how you incentivize somebody to find the right person outside of just being a fucking decent person, of not putting somebody in jail. But, like, if someone commits a crime, they're being incentivized to lock someone up.
Yeah.
Period. Not the right person, just a person. I mean, look at all the people who've been locked up who are innocent.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Or all the people that have committed victimless and nonviolent crimes.
Right.
Like this gentleman, this George Floyd, who was arrested for potentially writing a bad check. The cashier called the police on him because she thought he was writing a bad check.
Well, look at the Eric Garner. Eric Garner was supposedly selling cigarettes on the side of the street. And he died.
And we have the same thing. I can't breathe. I mean, they choked him out.
He was selling, supposedly he was involved in a fight earlier in the day, blah, 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 blah. But guess what? How is that relevant to him selling? And
police interaction.
Why do you need to approach this person because he's selling cigarettes? So here's let me play a devil's advocate position. Take a devil's advocate position. And I'm still honestly split a little tiny bit on this. And you and I went back and forth on this, where I don't remember the exact conversation, but it'll come back up, to where, like, what happens from the lights turn on, pulling the guy over, he pulls over, the cop approaches the door, that moment to the moment when he dies. Like, how do we get from a traffic stop, just trying to figure out what's going on, supposedly should be, I mean, that's his job, person's job, to go and, hey, somebody reported this person doing something illegal. Okay, well, my job as a police officer is to check it out, to report pulling this dude over. How does it escalate to the point of him being ripped out of his car and kneeled on and being detained and then ultimately dying? So the devil's advocate-ish position is that when you pull over, put your hands up on the wheel. I know you hate this, but this is the devil's advocate position.
Sure, yeah, no, I get it.
There should be many people. There are many people, and I mentioned this. I was like, no, a lot of people think that way.
Yeah.
Comply. You put your hands on the frickin' wheel. You say, yes, officer, how can I help you? License and registration. Okay, officer, I have my license in my back pocket and my registration's over in my glove compartment. Can I reach for it? Yes, sir. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Have an amicable conversation. And then the police officer says, will you step out of your vehicle? Sure, I guess, type of a thing. Like, you know what? Just do what the police officer says, and you're not going to die.
Right.
Why can't we just do that?
So I don't know if we got into that conversation last time about specifically like keeping your hands up on the wheel and things like that, because that's actually something that I think as a courtesy to the police officer you should do, knowing and recognizing that they are approaching the vehicle with the worst case scenario in mind,
right?
And knowing that if he or she can walk up to my vehicle and see both hands, it's going to immediately ease his stress or her stress, which will help ease my stress. Because a lot of it comes down to the sheer interaction that we see day to day, excessive force, police violence, no-knock raids on minority people or on just people in general. So when someone gets pulled over, they're automatically heightened. Like, are they going to be mad at me? Am I going to jail today? It's like, no, your taillight's just out. You're going to be fine if you're, a white mom in the burbs. But if you're a black guy wearing, a hoodie and jeans, and there was a robbery earlier that day who just, from a black guy with a hoodie and jeans, you might go to jail today. So there's automatically all this tension that spurs up between both sides, because now the officer's like, well, I can't see both your hands. It's historically, accurate that I pull people over and these people have guns. I've had a gun drawn on me twice today already.
Or there's all history of cops pulling people over for bullshit reasons for no reason. But okay, so what spurred this was that you sent me that picture of that guy from Denver, that the man is suing Denver Police Department for possible excessive force, which is kind of funny. The dude looks like he tried to steal like a silverback gorilla's baby.
He's in rough shape, guys. He had broken ribs, a broken nose. He had a broken cheekbone.
He can't open his eyes. His eyes are swollen up.
I mean, he is in rough shape.
And what you said was that this was over. He had a headlight out.
Yeah, he had a headlight, and then he eluded police.
Right, and so then I said, well, why did he elude police? And you said, does that warrant the cops destroying the guy? I mean, even if you resisted / assaulted, at what point do you simply, tase and handcuff him? I mean, seriously. And then it's when I said, well, some people would say it's warranted.
Right. And I just
10 and 2, man. Just tell the cops. Just do whatever the cop says.
The guy could have eluded for any number of reasons, and that wasn't listed in the article. And I probably could do some more research to figure it out, because he's countersuing or suing the state for excessive force.
Sure.
For at least his medical bills.
I kind of feel like he should win.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, even if you are eluding, again, part of me is like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But maybe he's scared.
Or maybe he had a joint earlier that night, or maybe his friend had a joint and left it in the car, and he's freaked out about that.
Yeah. So here's the other thing, and again, I've mentioned talking to strangers about 700,000 times on this podcast from Malcolm Gladwell, but read that book. He talks about this too, of that girl who was accused of murdering her her boyfriend overseas or whatever, and like how people thought she was guilty just because she was awkward. Yeah. Like, and so he goes real in depth to that, but basically his point of it is like, just because someone acts away doesn't mean they're guilty. Right. Okay? Like, there's the truth, and then there's your perception of what you think is the truth. And just because this, and again, I know there are probably people that are going to roll their eyes at Bloomer. He have eluded cops for 5 minutes and blah, 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 blah. Okay, but like there could be other things. And the fact that the cops defaulted to ripping the dude out of his car and beating the absolute piss out of him, what does that accomplish?
Right, exactly.
And again, so what if I was the police officer following him for those 5 minutes, and now he, for whatever reason, whether it was spike strips or whatever, he pulls over, we get him pulled over. Now I got to go approach this guy. Yeah, that's a nerve-wracking situation. But again, I don't know. I'm a cop. I signed up for that shit.
At the end of the article that I read, where it kind of was describing the story, in the official police report, it was said that the guy said in the hospital when the police dropped him off, like, why did you do this to me? And the cop responded, and this is what the nurse put in the official report, was the cop responded that this is what you get for eluding the law. I mean, that's why they beat his ass.
Right. So basically, he did something they didn't want him to do.
I mean,
okay, let me take a little bit of a left turn. So in 2020, we view authority as a society. Again, I'm going to make a general sweeping generalization. We view authority differently than, we'll say, our parents did.
sure.
Or even like in 20 years ago. Well, 40. I say 80s. I always think 80s is 20 years ago, but it's actually 40 years
40 years ago.
Which is crazy. Anyway, so, but even 40 years ago, we view authority differently.
Sure.
It was always, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Comply, do whatever you want to do. But in a world of social media, in a world of instant news, in a world of people can't really hide like they could in the 80s, we are viewing people, or we are viewing authority figures as creeps in a way. Like, look at politicians, look at police officers that are, I mean, we didn't talk about people, or officers shooting black people and killing black people in 1980. This just wasn't a conversation.
When was Rodney King? 92, maybe? Because there was riots over that.
Sure.
Which is pertinent to what's going on now. There's riots.
So he died in 2012.
Okay. When was his beating by the cops?
Rodney King riot, 92.
92. I was right. I guessed. I knew it was early 90s.
Yeah. So, but really before that, we never really talked about that, and now we see a lot more of it, right? So we view, and especially, I mean, look at our kids, to where like just because a cop tells you to do something doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
That's the stance in 2020.
Yeah.
In 1980,
sure.
That wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
It was, the cop's telling you to do it, you do it.
Yep.
And now we have our parents' generation that is just subservient people. And we've seen people die at the hands of the cops. We've seen pastors molest young boys. We've seen all these things where it's like, you don't, like, being in a power of a person of authority is very different now than it is in 20 or 20, 40 years ago. But the way police officers are being trained and how they conduct themselves is the same way.
Yeah.
Is kind of my long story. So that's oil and water. Like, that's not going to work out.
Right. So that kind of gets to the crux of my thoughts about the current state of affairs with this George Floyd case, which prompted this entire conversation. So now, immediately after following these events, we have a whole bunch of white people that go on Facebook that says, well, it's a couple bad apples. We still need to respect our police and respect law enforcement. It's just a couple it's fine. It's just a couple bad apples. Like, let's take care of these guys and it's fine. It's over with. It's like, that's not right. That's not that's a narrative that's being pushed now for how many, a decade, 2 decades? I don't even know when the bad apples conversation started, but I get more and more of it's just a couple bad apples. And then we see it happen again, or it gets worse. It's just, it's a small fraction of percent. It's just because we hear it on the media because this case exploded. It's fine. It's just a couple bad apples. It's like that normalizes this entire conversation to be, it's just those guys are bad.
Right.
The rest of police are fine, but they ignore all the other cases that don't get national attention. Like, nobody knows about Duncan Lemp, who the guy who got served a no-knock raid at 4:00 in the morning, and they shot him dead lying in his bed. He wasn't a black guy.
Right.
He was a guy the day before that tweeted the Constitution is dead. And they served a no-knock raid on him for suspected, for red flag laws, for suspected of illegal arms use. And they went in and shot him. And then you've got, just a couple of days ago prior to this, you've got the EMT, Breonna Taylor, who was shot, the girlfriend of a guy, a black guy who ended up shooting back at police because they knocked on the door, and he claims that they didn't announce they were police officers, but it was the morning. He was freaked out. He was scared. They knocked a couple times and then rammed in the door with their battering ram, and then came in guns drawn. So he shot him. Like the guy shot him. Yeah, shot at the police, and then he was arrested with attempted manslaughter or something like that.
Right.
But regardless, they shot the girlfriend dead while she was in her bed. It's like, where do the bad apples stop, and where does the good apples begin, and how do we start to differentiate before we just say, look, the system, as you kind of alluded to earlier, the system that we train these individuals is producing bad apples.
Right.
Like, it's not just bad apples that get into the system. We're producing them. We're encouraging it. We're driving this behavior home.
Right. But here's the thing is, it's not a quick fix. It's not.
It's not. As much as I want to say it is, it's not.
Because people are, if you were trained as a police officer 10 years ago, you still have 10, 15 years plus on the force. So I'm looking at that Statista, that's how you say it, Statista? Yeah. Chart that we both looked at, and you messaged me the number of people shot to death by police in the United States. Yeah. So less people are shot by police in 2019 than in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's positive.
Right.
Again,
2018, there was a spike though, right?
2018, no.
Oh, okay.
There's more in 2019 than in 2018, if I'm doing my quick math here.
Right.
But if anyone says more black people are being killed by police than white people, they're just wrong. More white people are being killed by police, but it's a sheer numbers game.
Right.
There are vast majority more white people in the United States than black people. There's last time I looked, there's 13% of the population is black people. So just by sheer numbers, I mean, you throw a rock in the air, you're going to hit, 100 times, you're going to hit 13 black people.
Sure.
Not in South Dakota, though. You know what I mean? And so
no, I get it.
More white people are going to be killed. Now, if you look at percentage-wise, definitely more black people percentage-wise are being killed than white people.
So that's where you can play with the numbers depending on what narrative you want to push.
Yes, and actually Hispanics, man. There are more. Actually, wait, I can't remember because there's, I don't know, a lot of Hispanic. Basically, just almost the same amount of Hispanics.
It was really even on that graphic
with black people.
I didn't spend a ton of time looking at analyzing it because I thought it was really interesting. But again, it depends on how you want to spin the numbers for your narrative as to how you want to play that game.
But look at 2020 so far, and I don't remember what the date that they cut this off. Oh, as of March 30th, 2020, 42 white people have been shot to death by police, and 31 black people.
That's crazy.
It's almost even. And there's a lot more white people than black people.
Right. So, yeah. So looking at just straight number, pound for pound, isn't really correct.
Right. Sheer numbers wise, more white people are killed every year by black people or by police officers. However, when you look at it, percentage of population, yes, more black people are killed. So it depends on how you want to spin your narrative. So yeah,
there was another graphic that I didn't send to you though, but it had the point in there that you are more likely to be shot by a police officer than win the lottery.
Well, that's interesting.
Just as a general statement, and I didn't dive into their numbers to see like where they got that from, but
I love that. That's really funny.
But it's kind of like
not funny.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, everyone. That wasn't funny.
It's not funny.
It's not what I meant.
But it's kind of like reading such a stark thing like that is like, holy shit. That's not bad apples anymore.
No.
That's a broken frickin' system that needs to be completely overhauled, revamped, and either trashed with a new one in place, which that's a whole other conversation and starting, or...
I know how to do it.
It's we all do. We privatize police.
Nope.
But we get...
Nope. Nope.
That's another conversation.
No, I know how to do it to our current police system.
All right, go for it.
Take away their guns.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
That was the only kind I have. Take away their guns, man. Why do police officers have guns, Josh?
To protect and serve.
I know I'm going to get a bunch of shit for this, but why do police officers have guns?
They are there to protect and serve their institution.
Correct. But when they pull me over, granted, I don't know. That wouldn't have saved the guy that died the other day. Wouldn't have saved Eric Garner, but it might take away the puffed chest police officer. Sure. Look at me. Hey, you need to bow down to me. I'm the police officer, because they don't have a gun.
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting idea.
Or and again, this is just speak, but like, cops can't shoot first.
Yeah, for sure.
Why would a cop be able to shoot first?
Like, again, in Minneapolis, a year ago, when the officer shot a guy in the passenger seat of his car, point blank. Yeah. I mean,
his family in his car.
Like the girlfriend and the daughter was in the back or something like that. It's like, I mean,
or
he was reaching for something under his seat, and the gal was screaming. He was reaching for his freaking wallet. Like, you asked him for his wallet. I told him to use his right hand, not his left hand, or whatever it was. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, here's the thing, too, is I've talked to, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine who's in the military, and he's been deployed, and he's saying under no circumstances, zero circumstances, can a military person, well, I shouldn't say zero, but under very few circumstances, under virtually zero circumstances, a military person cannot shoot first.
Right.
If you are deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq in wartime, you cannot, rules of engagement in the military, you cannot shoot first. So why the fuck can our police shoot first? Why is that a thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's insane.
And that it goes back to training.
We're less trained than military people.
Yeah.
In the act of firing a weapon and controlling a weapon and blah blah blah, they are less trained.
It's like 6
months. Somebody can call me out on that maybe, but they are less trained.
Yeah.
But they can just shoot whatever the hell they want.
By the time you get to Afghanistan, you have more training than a police officer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
Well,
we just solved it. I get.
But I mean, there was, and I was trying to find this article before I got here, and I didn't have enough time to pull it up, but there is a mayor in Arizona who was elected, and he saw this slowing incline in excessive force complaints in their community. And it was getting to the point where these were like getting really bad. And he was like, all right, obviously something's going on, and I don't know what it is, and I don't necessarily know how to fix it. But I probably can find someone that does know how to fix it. Mm-hmm. And so he went out and found a consulting firm. They came in, they did an audit of the entire police force, and they're like, your training is fucked. Mm-hmm. Like, your training is screwed up for all of the reasons that you already identified. And he said, okay, fix it. Just retrain them. It spent like $2 million. I mean, it wasn't in the scope for a small community. It wasn't a ton of money. I mean, honestly, not that you couldn't find $2, $3, $4, $5 million to retrain a police department. Yeah. In 2 years, they cut their excessive police complaints down to half. And they started getting better reviews. People said, we really appreciate our officers coming around now because they treat us with such respect. They're treating us as people and humans. They're not asserting their force and authority. They're not approaching every situation like, I'm in charge. You're not. Sit down and shut up and let me control the situation. So it was just simply retraining the police force, taking care of the police force. That's all it took.
Yeah. And
obviously there's still going to be issues, but that's a damn good start and a relatively quick turnaround for not a lot of money either.
Some people would say $2 million is a lot of money, but
in the scope, you know what I'm getting.
It depends on the size of the city and what they spend there.
How much could a potential lawsuit from something like George Floyd's going to cost the city? Yeah, for one single time.
I will put this out there, and I said this the last episode that we were talking about police. I would legitimately love to talk to police officers about this. I'm not, my mind is not made up. Like, my mind has shifted a lot since you and I first started talking about this. I was a staunch, just obey.
just follow the law.
Just follow the law. Don't break the law. If you break the law, then you deserve to get the shit beat out of you, basically. I was that guy. And I've come a long way, and I want to understand a police officer's point of view more, because that's not a point of view I can just step into.
Sure. Yeah.
And I want to know how they're trained, and I want to know their continuing training, and I want to know all that stuff. The downside is that I've reached out to a lot of people that I know who are police officers, and they're just like, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking on a record. I'm not talking, you know what I mean? And which is unfortunate, but I understand that position as well.
Maybe we can do the whole call in anonymous thing. We could mask their voice and put the little silhouette figure.
I would do that.
Anyway,
we have ways that we can figure that out. So, I was going to ask you something. Anyway, what do you think about this beer?
Was it about the beer? Because I am delighted about this beer.
It's decent. So I can't remember the last copper lager we had, or ale. But we had one not too long ago, a couple episodes ago. A hybrid style between an ale and a lager. This bronze-hued brew goes down easy with subtle nuances of chocolate and hazelnut.
I enjoyed it.
It was pretty good.
In terms of Liberty Stars?
Liberty Steins?
Yes. 4.5.
Woo! You gave a lot of stars to the last brown ale.
I must like it.
I'm gonna give her a 3.5.
Ooh,
that's a solid beer for me.
Yeah, it's all right.
So
I really liked it.
Here's the call out there to. Here, let's do this.
You don't have to be a police officer. No, you do. You don't have to live here. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I don't care where you live. I just want to talk to police officers. I love this topic.
Tell them about the Netflix show that you watched about the cops who had to go to jail.
Oh, it's on Hulu.
Oh, Hulu.
60 Days In. 60 Days In is a show where basically civilians are implanted into a jail, and some of them are police officers. And that's all I care about. I don't give a shit about these pastors who go in there or whatever. But all of the police officers in the 4 seasons ish that I've watched, all of the police officers except for one quit being a police officer.
That's crazy, man.
After going to jail, citing, I can't send people there.
Yeah, that's
one of the ladies in the first season, she was a police officer 20 years, Josh. 20 years. She went to jail for 60 days and she quit her job.
Wow.
Because she's like, I can't send people there. I can't, in my conscience, send people there. Insane.
I have yet to watch it, but it sounds good.
BeerBaseballTyranny.com.
There you go.
Our merch store is back up and going, thanks to Josh.
Probably some new stuff going to be coming soon, as I got a little more time
Whoop, whoop.
to work on stuff.
So,
Go
I appreciate you guys watching, listening.
Let us know your thoughts on police force.
Yeah.
The topic, the show.
Everybody has a thought on this, and I think it's interesting. So,
I like it.
thanks, everyone.
See you later, man.